let's see what's in the envelope. There's this older family tree. I can tell it's older from the way it's been written. It's really, really thick paper. And I've seen lots of trees written like this. Very old ones. I mean, really, I'd say this is from the 1850s or something like that. What are the dates on here? Died 1835. The last person on here is 1864, so it's 1860s at least, well around then. This is for the Tarbuck family. It's quite interesting looking at the top of this, because you've got a Robert Tarbuck and then died 1715. Tarbuck of Chester. Just got sons and sons, so they didn't know the names of the people here. Then Peter Tarbuck died 1726. Bilcliffe Tarbuck. Another Bilcliffe here, quite a lot of children. And then we go down to an Edward Lance Tarbuck. And there's various other Tarbucks here. A daughter whose name's not known married Mark Nobbe. That's unfortunate, isn't it? And Mary Nobbe married George Daniel. More Tarbucks here. This is quite an old tree here. Where on earth did the name Bilcliffe come from? Oh, Mary Bilcliffe. Peter Tarbuck married Mary Bilcliffe. And then there's a few Bilcliffes that go down. I wonder if there's any descendants of this family around. If we can find any of them. It's a lovely thing to have, like that old family tree. You know, I don't have any old family trees like this in my possession other than the one that my dad did, you know, and he did that in really the 70s. That's the oldest one. This is lovely. You can just... you can hear the quality of that paper. So let's see what we can find out about the Tarbucks. I'm on my computer, so let's have a look at what we can find out about the Tarbuck family of Chester. And we'll start with where Chester actually was. Here it is on Google Maps. Let's just scroll out and have a little look. So it's below Liverpool, up here in the northeast of England, very close to Wales. Now, I bought this map on eBay in July 2023. This is it here and how it was advertised. Now, I started by doing a search for Robert Tarbuck of Chester just on Google. And it came up in the search results with something that I was a bit surprised about from Chapel Books with this Tarbuck pedigree. Now, this is a 7-generation pedigree tracing the family's descent from Tarbuck of Chester from Robert Tarbuck, died 1715. And it talks about the dimensions, which is what I've got, and also the other names with Tarbucks in the 1860s and the names of Saul and Reeve. So this appears to be what I bought 2 years ago, so I don't quite know why it's still on the website. I didn't even buy it from what I thought was Chapel Books, but maybe I did. Maybe it's just still there. But I'm not going to go into that now because we can go down a whole different pathway. We've got the pedigree, we've got the family tree, and we're researching it. This is the family tree with Tarbuck of Chester here. And the first name person we've got is Robert Tarbuck. So what I've done is I've put it on Ancestry as a family tree on Ancestry. And we can see we've got Robert Tarbuck here. We don't know when he was born. We don't know his wife's name. But we know, according to this family tree, he had Peter Tarbuck, who died in 1726, and a James Tarbuck. Now, we have no idea how accurate this tree actually is and whether the people who did this tree actually got the earlier generations right. But I've put it all in on my Ancestry 4-minute family history tree, and the link is in the description to prove or disprove this to see if it's correct. So we go down all these generations through Robert, Peter, Bilcliffe, Peter, Edward, and then to these 3 children. And looking at this, we can see the dates of birth of these 3 children here in the 1860s. The parents' dates of deaths had not been put on here. None of the other children have got the same level of detail here. This is a child that died in infancy, so I can be pretty sure that this family tree comes from this family. Edward Lance Tarbuck, born in 1828, and his wife Rosina Wilkins, later Tarbuck, born in 1831. And it must have been made after 1864, but before the parents died. So if I find out when the parents died, I'll be able to get a better idea of how old this family tree actually is. So here we go. The two people we're most interested in at the moment, just to try and get our footing, is Robert Tarbuck, which it says died in 1715, and Peter Tarbuck died in 1726. As it says the family were from Chester, that's in Cheshire, and Ancestry has got these Cheshire Church of England baptisms, marriages and burials here, which are from the Cheshire Studies and Local Studies Centre. So I've done a search on here for Robert Tarbuck. It doesn't really come up with anything though. There's only three. This top one is for Witton as well. So there's Witton St Helen. Let's just have a little look using some wildcards. If we use a question mark, and then I put in this, a question mark would find any possible mistranscriptions, because sometimes T's and F's can be confused. Even sometimes actually U's can be miswritten as A's and things like this. So let's put in another wildcard letter there. In fact, let's put one in for the U as well, because often there could be different spellings with E's and things as well when the clerks and everyone wrote down the name. So let's put this in. I'm just going to put an asterisk at the end, because while a question mark is just one letter, an asterisk indicates a whole load of letters. So this would bring in Robert, Robin, Robert spelt with two R's, or maybe a mistranscription. So let's have a little look if that brings up anything else. No, it brings up exactly the same. We can see this Tarbuck there. So that doesn't really tell us very much, does it? I've done the same for Peter, and that comes up with somebody in Witton again, but this is miles before we're looking at, from 1640. Are these the names of parents? Yeah, these are all Peter Tarbuck parents again in Witton. This is a bit older for the Peter I'm researching, isn't it? So that doesn't really help us either. Now, the third generation of this tree, though, is Peter Tarbuck, died 1726, and Mary Bilcliffe. Bilcliffe is such an unusual name. So let's do a Google search for these two. And the top search comes up with this: Literary and Historical Notes, Oxford Academic. Peter married Mary Bilcliffe at Portsmouth in 1704. Okay, let's look at this article. This is from Notes and Queries, 8th of December 1951. Where is this? Oh, there, look, the Tarbuck family. What have we got here? There has been some correspondence in the daily press recently regarding families who can trace a descent from 1066 or earlier, right? For the purpose of this article, I am taking for a starting point the pedigree of the Torbucks of Witton, Great Budworth, in the Visitation of Chester. Well, this is where we were looking at, Witton, wasn't it? I'm trying to work out where this place is, because here's Chester. It's coming up with St Helen's Church is here, but only in Northwich. Oh, I think, is it the same place? I don't know. Oh, I see. Witton cum Twambrooks, known simply now as Witton, is the name given to both the historic township and ward in Northwich. Okay, so it is here in Northwich, apparently. There's Chester, so it's not far away, is it? And very near to Manchester and Liverpool. In this visitation is entered a pedigree of 5 generations, showing the descendants of Thomas Torbock, and ending with the children and grandchildren of Robert Torbock of Witton. John had a son, George, baptised in 1569, right, and a will from 1641. Okay, George had 2 sons, John and Thomas, but John appears to have been missing at the time of his father's death in 1641. Thomas, in his will, here. 1669 mentions 4 children, Peter, George, Robert and Jane. So the Robert that we have, who died in 1715, could quite easily be the son of this Thomas. This person here could be Thomas, and maybe these are the siblings, and there is one daughter there, look. So Peter, George, Robert and Jane. So maybe 2 of these are Peter and George, and this is Jane here, maybe. Robert changed the spelling of his name to Tarbuck. Did he actually change it, or was it just the various spellings of the time that then just got set? Anyway, and left the family salt business to become a silk thrower, migrating via Southwark, where he married Rack Safe in 1664. What is a silk thrower? What on earth is that? Silk throwing is the industrial process wherein silk that has been reeled into skeins is cleaned, receives a twist and is wound onto bobbins. He continued in the same occupation in Southampton until his death in 1717. Right, 1717. So that is different to our 1715 date, but that's understandable. In his will, 1717, he mentions 3 children, Thomas, Peter and James. Peter married Mary Bilcliffe at Portsmouth in 1704. Okay, so this looks like it's them. I need to look at the will. He mentions 3 children, Thomas, Peter and James. We've only got Peter and James on this family tree. Wonder what happened to Thomas then, named after his father. And it's telling me that Peter and Mary married at Southampton in 1704. So they weren't in Chester then, were they? They all went to Southampton. So if they married in 1704, that means all of these children here were born after 1704. And we've got these 3 unknown sons, the daughter whose name we don't know, who married Mark Nobbe, and then our Bilcliffe. Now, on Ancestry are the Canterbury wills. This is Robert Tarbuck's will from 1717 from Southampton. Let's open that up. 7th of September. Here is the will here, where they always translate the first name to like the Latin form. So here is R.E.T. Tarbuck. Let's read the will. In the name of God, Amen. I, Robert Tarbuck, of the town and county of Southampton, silk thrower, being in a competent measure of health and of a sound and disposing mind and memory, thanks be to Almighty God for the same, but calling to mind the uncertainty of this. Okay, yes, he's just doing his opening bits, isn't he? So what does he say? I give and bequeath unto my son Thomas Torbock and Mary his wife, each 2 guineas, in lieu of 2 pictures, one of myself, the other of my wife, which I am prevented of bequeathing unto him. That's weird, isn't it? This Robert Tarbuck was quite wealthy, wasn't he, to have pictures of himself here. What else is in this will here? Let me just see. Granddaughter Rachel of my said son Thomas, 1 guinea. I give and bequeath unto my son Peter Tarbuck and Mary his wife. They are both on the tree here, but Thomas isn't on this tree. And Peter, their son, each 1 guinea. Is Peter on here? Oh, Peter isn't on here, so Peter must be one of these sons here. Presumably the eldest son. So we can fill him in now on the tree on Ancestry. Give unto my said daughter-in-law Mary, the wife of my son Peter, so that's Mary Bilcliffe, my 2 pictures. One of myself, the other of my wife during her life, and after her decease to my son Thomas and his heirs forever. Why did he give the pictures of him and his wife to his daughter-in-law Mary, and then for her to give them to Thomas? That's very peculiar. Right, I give and bequeath unto my granddaughter Sarah Tarbuck, daughter of my said son Thomas. Okay, £40. I really don't understand how much is a guinea. Now, I don't understand guineas. How much is 1 guinea in pounds? A guinea was worth £1, 1 shilling. A guinea is a coin that was minted between 1663 and 1813. It's not used anymore, no. So a guinea is worth just over £1. So he's giving his children and things 1 guinea, but then he gives his granddaughter Sarah Tarbuck, daughter of Thomas, £40. So that's, a lot more, isn't it? Out of £50 I have in the South Sea stock. And some spoons, okay. It's interesting because you get an idea about what they owned. Look, my silver salt, so that must be a salt dispenser, isn't it? 2 silver spoons and silver dram dish. And the bed she laid on in my little chamber. Oh, so was she living with them? There's all the furniture here, which is very interesting. Then we've got his son. I given to my son James Tarbuck. Now, James is on the family tree here. The bed I lay on, so he's leaving the bed here. And other furniture. Then Sarah, the daughter of Thomas, is mentioned again. Son Thomas, son James. Okay, and that's everything there, isn't it? Right, so now we need to try and find out about the death of Peter. Does he have a burial or a will or anything? And looking at the search on Ancestry in wills and probates, we have got this one in Hampshire for a Peter Tarbuck, 1727. In Southampton, we know the father was in Southampton, and we know that Peter died in 1726. So this seems like this is going to be his. Let's open this up. Oh, it's in Latin, isn't it? I can see it's in administration. So it's not a will. Oh, I really am rubbish with Latin. Oh, I can instantly see a Rose Bilcliffe there. So this is definitely him, isn't it? Rose Bilcliffe, that must be a relative on his wife's side then. And Jacobo, that's James Tarbuck. So I think that's going to be his brother, isn't it, James? I suspect it must be, really. Bilcliffe Tarbuck is mentioned here. Bilcliffe was the son. So I wonder if Peter, who we know from the will of the grandfather, died between like 1717 when the will was made and then when Peter died, and then Bilcliffe became the eldest son. That seems highly possible, doesn't it? I don't even know what this means. That says administration. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what this really says. I mean, I could work it out, but I don't really... Oh, look, that's interesting. That says Quaker. Rose Bilcliffe, Quaker. If some of the Bilcliffe family were Quakers, could it mean that all of the children were Quakers? Because I cannot find the baptisms of any of these children. And if they were Quakers, maybe that is why. What do we know about Southampton Quakers? Peter married Mary Bilcliffe in Portsmouth in 1704, so that is all down there in Hampshire, isn't it? What do we know about what can we find out about the Southampton Quakers? Are there any registers? Nothing obvious there. This is the Quaker registers on Ancestry. Let's look up Bilcliffe. Well, Isaac Bilcliffe, these are London. This is London. Do the Quaker registers survive for Hampshire? Dorset, Hampshire, there. I'm just seeing if there's early registers. Southampton Monthly Meeting Book. What is that one? That's what I want. Monthly Meeting of Paul and Southampton. Oh, look, there are loads of them. Let's search for Tarbuck. Are there any Tarbucks? Is there anything from like Southampton? Doesn't look like it, does it? There doesn't seem to be any. Lots in Lancashire. There don't seem to be any, so maybe they weren't. I wonder where they married. Can we find the marriage of Peter Tarbuck and Mary Bilcliffe if we know that it happened in 1704? Because that's what would be helpful, wouldn't it? Let's have a search. We've got England. Does that come up with anything? Let's have a little look. No. There's nothing there, is there? There's a history of Southampton Quakers, so I'm going to leave this for another time, not now, because we'll go down one of those big rabbit warrens. I'm just going to do a search for our Bilcliffe Tarbucks, because we've got so many of them. We've got 3 on the tree here, although this one died. And we've also got Bilcliffe Martin. What else does this article tell us that we were looking at earlier? So Peter married Mary Bilcliffe at Portsmouth in 1704. The children of this marriage were Bilcliffe and Peter. Bilcliffe marrying Jane Reed at Stratford-upon-Avon in 1738 and dying in 1787. So let's go here. This is who we've looked at. Bilcliffe and Jane. And their children are here. John, Jane who died, Bilcliffe who died, Mary, Jane who also died quite young, Bilcliffe, James and Peter. John, Mary, Jane, Bilcliffe, James and Peter, yeah. The last, Peter, was born in 1756. We've just looked at him, haven't we? And married somewhat late in life in 1827 Elizabeth Lance, having a son, Edward Lance Tarbuck, born 1828. He did marry late, didn't he? He married incredibly late. In 1727. He was like 70 then, wasn't he, when he married? And then just had the one son, it seems, Edward Lance Tarbuck, because his wife was Elizabeth Lance. The latter, as in Edward Lance Tarbuck, was my maternal grandfather. And other grandchildren and great-grandchildren are still living. So this is written in 1951 by R.E.T. Williams. The latter was my maternal grandfather. He was a Williams. Let me look at their children. So the children on here are Elizabeth Rose Tarbuck and Jane Tarbuck. So one of these must have married a Williams. And they were the mother of this person who wrote this article. Wow. I've done a search on Ancestry for all the Bilcliffe Tarbucks, and there are quite a lot of them here. There's some apprentices. There's a lot of stuff here. There's 2 wills for Bilcliffe Tarbuck. This is the father, isn't it? This one. Because this is 1786. And this has got him as dying in 1786. So that seems to be proved correct. Let's have a quick look at this will. Bilcliffe Tarbuck. I, Bilcliffe Tarbuck, of the parish of St Leonard in Shoreditch in the county of Middlesex. Tinplate worker. He was a tinplate worker. And there's a lot of records here that could be of interest here. There's Freedom of the City admission papers. This must be him, is it? August 1731. Tinplate worker. He became a freeman of the City of London. There's also some apprenticeship records here. Bilcliffe Tarbuck, 1724. Now, there is a second Bilcliffe Tarbuck will here from 1794. This is probably when the will was proved. So I'm assuming that this is going to be his son here. Let's have a look. Probate, 15th of March, 1794. Let's look at the will. So this is, again, the last will and testament of Bilcliffe Tarbuck of the parish of St Leonard's, Shoreditch, London, which is the same place as his father. I will and direct there be purchased the first opportunity that estate which came to my father after the death of his grandfather, Ralph Bilcliffe, one of the speakers at Hart Court, Great Church Street, London. So Ralph Bilcliffe, so him, his father, it's Mary Bilcliffe's father was Ralph Bilcliffe then. One of the speakers at White Hart Court, Great Church Street, London. And it was known as Preston Farm in Preston Green in the parish of Preston Bagot and Henley, and was part of my mother's jointure. God, this is funny, isn't it? Hearing about a jointure from the 1700s. I've been looking at jointures with the Tudors. There's a video I done on that for Thomas and Elizabeth Boleyn from 1500. Well, so this is him then. I wonder when he made this will. It was proved a lot after, wasn't it? Let's have a look when... This is a very long will, but let's have a look to see when it was made. Oh, it's going on forever, this. My sister Mary Martin, yeah. She's on the will here. There's marrying George Martin. Bilcliffe is here. This is at the very end. He says, whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal this 11th day of November 1784. So he wrote his will in 1784. According to this, he died in 1791. And then it was proved in 1794. So this is him. I wonder if Peter Tarbuck had a will in, his brother. Let's have a look in the Court of Canterbury wills first. Oh, yeah, look, Peter Tarbuck, 1833, Greenwich, Kent. Let's have a look at him here. I, Peter Tarbuck of 2 Norfolk Place, Woolwich Road, Greenwich. And to my dear wife, Elizabeth Tarbuck. So that is Elizabeth Lance here. I'm just seeing if he mentions his son in here or anything. He mentions his wife's relatives because there's an Edward Lance here. Presumably his son was called Edward Lance. I don't know if this Edward was his brother-in-law or father-in-law though. Oh, Edward Lance the elder, that's presumably his father-in-law, I think. It's very short, isn't it? It's a very short will. Proved on the 27th of November 1833. So there's a whole chain now. From that article, it looks like we know that this person was called Thomas. Then we've got Robert. Then we've got Peter. We know there was another son, Thomas, here, because he's mentioned in the will. Then we've got Bilcliffe, but we know there was a son, Peter, here. Then we go down to Peter. And then we've got Edward Lance Tarbuck. Let's see what we can find out about him and his wife, Rosina. I'm looking at the family trees on Ancestry, and there are basically no real family trees for this family. Bilcliffe is here. Can we find Edward Lance Tarbuck? Let's have a look. Let's search in public member trees for Edward Lance Tarbuck. Let's do a search here. Oh, the only one that comes up is in my family tree that I've put on the 4-minute family history public tree. Isn't that curious? There's no family trees with this man in, or really the earlier Tarbucks. We know that R.E.T. Williams, who wrote this, he mentions in here that Edward Lance Tarbuck was his maternal grandfather, and other grandchildren and great-grandchildren are still living. So there were some descendants down here, but you just never know. Just over here, we've got Francis Martin and William Reeve, who had a son who died in infancy. Not all the brothers seem to have had children. As far as I can see, Mary as the sister just had these 2 children. Some of these died in infancy over here. It's very possible that, despite this very large-looking tree getting larger, that there are very few descendants down here. And none of them are probably interested in family history, which is why there's no one on Ancestry. This shows what I mean about some of these spelling problems, though, when they're doing transcriptions of old documents. This is Preston Bagot, which is where we were looking earlier, because that was mentioned in the will as being the estate of Ralph Bilcliffe. So Bilcliffe and Jane presumably moved there, but look, it says Garbick here. So that is not right, is it? Can I change the spelling? No, can't change the spelling on this because it's not an Ancestry database, but it's wrong. So we're looking for Edward Lance Tarbuck and Rosina and anything about their children that we can find. I've done a search for Edward Lance Tarbuck on Ancestry. We have got loads and loads of answers here to things. This is his baptism, firstly. Look, 1828. Where was he baptised? Baptised in St Mary, Lewisham. I've been to St Mary, Lewisham for another episode that's going to come up in the future. This is his baptism here. Edward Lance, son of Peter and Elizabeth Tarbuck, number 2 Norfolk Place, Greenwich. Oh, that was the address, and father was a gentleman. What else have we got in these search results? Oh, there's his death, 1906. I've now done a search for Edward Lance Tarbuck on Google, and quite a few things come up here. Edward Lance Tarbuck, artist, Oh, 1855? What is this? Okay, associated books. Oh, there's a load of books here. Prize essay for the Institute Medal of the Royal Institute of British Architects. There's a load of books he wrote about architecture here. He wrote a lot of things about them. Handbook of House Property and Handbook of House Property. It's even on eBay. What is this? What is it? Handbook of House Property and Fine Art, Tarbuck. Edward Lance Tarbuck. Oh, look, there's loads of them on eBay. I don't want to buy one because I don't really want a Handbook of House Property. But look at all those. Oh, and the Encyclopedia of Practical Carpentry and Joinery. Oh, look at that. Edward Lance Tarbuck, Encyclopedia of Practical Carpentry and Joinery, first edition 1870, £371. I'm not going to be buying this, but let's have a look. Oh, look at that. I wonder if he drew those then. Did he actually draw those? He did, look. E.L. Tarbuck, he drew that. Oh, wow. I wonder if he did the family tree himself. That's exciting, isn't it? So out Edward Lance Tarbuck. He published books on architecture and carpentry and joinery. He must have a picture. I bet there's a picture of him somewhere. Anything else on Google? Oh, the Encyclopedia of Practical Carpentry and Joinery. This is it here. This is on Hathi Trust. They actually let you view old books. What have we got here? Oh, here it is. This is the front page. The Encyclopedia of Practical Carpentry and Joinery. The choice, preservation and strength of materials, explanations of the theory and practical details, a complete system of lines for the carpenter, joiner and staircase builder. Edward Lance Tarbuck, architect. Editor of the Builder's Practical Director. Author of a popular account of the styles of architecture. Well, sounds like he was a bit of a name in architecture. If he died in 1906, we know this family tree is presumably before that date because his death would have been here otherwise, and we need to find out when his wife Rosina died. Let's search for the marriage of Edward Tarbuck and Rosina Wilkins. Let's have a search here. Marriage in Lambeth, this is it here. Marriage at St Mary-at-Lambeth. Crikey, look at that. I've been doing such a lot of research on the St Mary-at-Lambeth church that's now the Garden Museum. I've made a load of videos about the tomb of Anne Boleyn's mother Elizabeth, Howard Boleyn, in St Mary-at-Lambeth, and I've done loads of upcoming videos about Lambeth that will be coming in the future, so that's really interesting. I've also got my St Mary-at-Lambeth Memorials Project Facebook page all about the church here, which you can join if you're a bit interested in St Mary-at-Lambeth. So how fascinating that they married there. Let's have a look at that. Here is their marriage. Let's see. Edward Lance Tarbuck, Rosina Wilkins. He's an architect. Look, that's his profession here. He was in Hanover Square. She was St George's, Hanover Square. Peter Tarbuck, deceased, gentleman. Father Samuel Wilkins, engineer. And this is their actual signatures here. Edward Lance Tarbuck, Rosina Wilkins. So if we do a search for Rosina Tarbuck on Ancestry, what does it come up with her? It comes up with this, find a grave. St Mary's Churchyard in Lewisham. Again. That's where he was baptised, wasn't it, Edward Tarbuck? Oh, we've got a tomb. Look at this great big tomb in St Mary the Virgin in Lewisham. Oh, and Edward Lance Tarbuck's there too, so they had a big tomb. Let's look at this big tomb here. Look at that, it's here. Big, big tomb, isn't it? There was a vault under here. So I wonder if you removed that stone to put more burials in. I'm not quite sure. This is the front of the church. Yeah, I know where this is. This is the inscription. Look, it's very, very faint, but you can see Edward Lance Tarbuck here because we know what it says. There's another one of the inscription here. Oh, there's Rosina. I can see it. Very faint, but there it is. So they were buried together where he was baptised. Also to the memory of Rosina, wife of Edward Lance Tarbuck, only son of the aforesaid Peter and Elizabeth Tarbuck, died 1893. So 1893. There's a little clip here of St Mary the Virgin at Lewisham that I made for the future episode. Sadly, the tomb of the Tarbucks is not in this clip. You get a good idea, and it's going to be very, very near these big tomb chests in the front of the churchyard. So because Rosina died in 1893, and the date of Jane's birth is 1864, we can date this family tree now pretty confidently to between 1864 and 1893. And all these generations of Tarbucks that we've looked at here, starting up at the top with Robert, Peter, Bilcliffe, Peter, Edward, and then the children and all their wives, Mary, Jane, Elizabeth and Rosina, we, from one bit of paper ordered on eBay, look what we now know about their lives. I'm going to update all of this on the 4-minute family history family tree on Ancestry that you can look at if you click on the link. Thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel, here's some more things coming up that you might be interested in.
You can continue the story with the next episode unedited, or continue finding out more with the edited episode. Or what about watching this new family history story? Click here to subscribe to the channel to find out all about future episodes. Thanks for watching.